Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a free-to-play friendly build. It is a deeper Pool 3 collection. You have your Thor, your Jane Foster, Lockjaw, Doctor Doom, and Magneto, Arrow, a lot of those Pool 3 cards, but if you're close to Pool 3 complete, then this is going to be one of the more consistent builds that you can do. It can't always quite keep up with some of the really strong decks, but what it can do is really consistently push out a good amount of power across the board. Now in this version, we still don't have our Jubilee. If you've watched any of my Lockjaw videos, if you watch my content, you know that I'm not a big fan of Jubilee in the Jane Jaw Lockjaw rotation. It's just a really low power flip, and if you get Jubilee as your last flip, it always feels really bad to cap out your lane with a 1 power play. And so we still want to mitigate how many bad flips we have, while still being able to have the flexibility to do some big power plays. One of the key changes in this version that I didn't have in my other version is the Shang-Chi. The Shang-Chi is a tech that, with how many just massive, powerful plays that we have right now, feels like it is almost necessary in almost every deck. We have the Shang-Chi, we took out Killmonger, and we added in Shang-Chi as that kind of flexibility piece. We also took out one of our high power plays, which is typically Giganto, in the space of Odin, to give us that flexibility. Sometimes we're going to double trigger our Mjolnir. Sometimes we're going to double trigger Doctor Doom. And having that value is incredibly, well, valuable. Overall, it still runs very much like a standard Jane Jaw Lockjaw rotation deck. Had quite a bit of success with it, much more than I've had with Nimrod so far, and this one is a lot more accessible than my Nimrod build. And if you want to see more of this deck or any of our other decks live in a less structured way, make sure to check us out on twitch.tv/TLSG Snap. We go live almost every single weekday, as often as we can, so make sure that you're following over there so that you don't miss any of those. And with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, first up we have Rub My. The first location is the Triskelion, so it does end up clogging our hand quite a bit. The Collector's not great for us. Adam Warlock's honestly not great for us either, because we have so many cards. Plunder Castle is actually pretty interesting. We do have the Heimdall, which we'll be able to shift our cards over. I think we're going to do Adam Warlock to the right. We're going to do Adam Warlock to the right. We can play Thor into the right lane. We're aiming and probably building up into a last turn Heimdall shift over into middle. And so let's go with the Thor. We can start stacking in the Triskelion depending on what they have on the board. And this is going to be a complete surprise drop. Like, there's no way anyone anticipates the Heimdall. The Heimdall came from the Triskelion, and I think that's where some of his real strength lies, is that surprise factor. You can sneak out games that you would have otherwise lost. So the Lizard probably going to be, with the Lizard anyways, no, it's a Triskelion, so the Iron Fist. So it could be a movement deck. They can actually fit stuff into Nidavellir. They can actually fit stuff into Plunder Castle a little bit easier, unfortunately. Let's go with Killmonger and maybe Jane Foster on 5. I don't know. We're not for sure exactly how we end this one. With Nidavellir, with us having the lead, we will be able to gain an extra card. They're going to have the 4 power rescue. All they have to do is play into Nidavellir, though, to be able to get benefit from it. Let's rotate our 2 cards here. We're going to do Collector, and then we're going to do Wasp. Neither one. We don't want to pull back into either one, but I think it's all right. I think we'll be okay with it. Depending on what it pulls into, a Vision would be perfect. Magneto would be okay to pull the rescue out of the Plunder Castle lane. And Doctor Doom would help us go wide. We have a couple of good flips. Mjolnir is going to be stuck in that lane, so it's an okay flip in general. It kind of hurts to have it locked in there, though. And so we know that we're not going to get a dud here. Magneto pulls the rescue out. They no longer have any power in the Plunder Castle lane. We're winning the Triskelion slightly for now. Anyways, I was going to do Heimdall, but we have initiative. I think we just destroy their Captain Marvel, and we try to relish in the fact that we win left, and we're going to have a stacked Nidavellir lane with the extra 5 power bonus that each one gets. Now, if they have a Shang-Chi of their own, that is going to hurt us. We have, actually, it's only Thor that's within Shang-Chi range. They would lose the Triskelion. We should be in a really good spot here to be able to find a way to lock down the rest of this game. They split between left and right. They don't have anything into Plunder Castle. I think they're relying on Captain Marvel, but that's not going to do it for them this time around. We have the Wasp, which is going to get the +5. Doc Ock is not going to do it. I mean, it swings the left lane, but there's no way that you position yourself with 34 power in the right lane. We do come away with the win from the Lockjaw rotation, and being able to play that depending on what cards we have in our deck, and then just using a little bit of luck from the Lockjaw rotation. We will absolutely take those. Let's take our 2 cubes. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Tree. The first location is the negative zone, which is not great. Let's see, are they running? No, they're probably running a junk deck. If they ran their hood in the negative zone, I imagine it's probably pretty junky. We do have our Shang-Chi. We have Thor, Doctor Doom. We have some pretty decent cards in our starting hand. Thor is always a good one. They do have the Viper. So it is a junk or clog style deck. We have to be aware of that when playing our Lockjaw. We may not want to play Lockjaw until we have a card to rotate. So going into this turn, we have our Thor. We have Shang-Chi that we can use. I think we're going to play Thor into the left lane. The Shang-Chi should give us a 9 power swing in mid. Of course, junk decks oftentimes do run a Shang-Chi of their own. The Thor should help us try to gain some power in that left lane, and then our Sunspot can, of course, soak in the right lane. So even if we get completely capped out, we should be okay. We're especially with the solid way to swing the middle location in our favor. We do also... Okay, so Jane Foster pulls our Sunspot over, so never mind. Our cards are no longer split how they should be split. The Odin is not terrible. I think we're going to do Shang-Chi in Monster Island. That guarantees we get advantage there. On turn 5, we could maybe do Jane Foster. On turn 6, we could do Lockjaw, Mjolnir, and Wasp to rotate those 3, get power here. We have a decent power here, and then also here. I think it's going to be our ideal play line, depending on what else they play. The Black Widow, actually, that changes things. Instead of the Jane Foster, we might just cycle on this next turn instead. That allows us to do a Doctor Doom on the last turn, and the Widow's Bite is just a free rotation. It feels bad to not utilize the Widow's Bite. If we flip into our Mjolnir, we have 2 potential bad flips from this interaction. If we flip into Mjolnir, then we can hit it with an Odin on the last turn, which would be probably the perfect interaction we could ask for. The Doc Ock is... I actually ended up taking Doc Ock out of my junk deck because of this specific reason. So we already have the Shang-Chi on the board, but they pull our Odin, which then destroys their... their Doc Ock, and pulls our Doctor Doom, so then we have power wide. We flip into our Infinite. Goodness. And then we do also get our Mjolnir. So we're going to get 6 extra power here. We already have a commanding lead here and here. It's unfortunate. We could flip into maybe Arrow with our initiative and pull whatever they play out of these locations. I think that... Oh no, they play 2 cards in Nova Roma. Interesting that they stuck it out. And they stayed with us after whatever this ends up being. So the Shang-Chi's big. The Shang-Chi wins that lane, but we very heavily support the left and the middle location. Even with their soak, the Sunspot coming down, the Mjolnir, there's just not a lot that they can do. I appreciate them staying, though. So we will take our 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Zohai. The first location is Central Park, so that ends up sending a couple of squirrels onto the board. We're okay, as long as they're not running some kind of clog deck or running Killmonger, we're really okay with that. We don't need all of that much space. Are you a real person running Quicksilver? Did we find the one person that non-ironically runs Quicksilver? I think we're going to play Wasp into mid. We can do Thor to the right afterwards. It is nice to have Wasp as a rotation tool. If we had Lockjaw, then maybe we wouldn't. Maybe we wouldn't play it there. But since we don't have our Lockjaw, we don't know if we're going to even draw it. The Quicksilver Domino. Are we playing against an Agatha turn 3 retreat deck? If this comes down, then we just got a free cube, right? I almost want to snap into him. Do we snap? We're going to snap into him. This is such a weak opening hand. They have 6 cards left in their deck. We have 6, so it's not an Agatha. They don't have Agatha in their hand. They're just running whatever this is into the Black Widow, and it has okay. They might be a human. They might be a real person. They might be a real boy. We shuffled a Mjolnir into our deck. We have the Widow's Bite. We're gonna just go ahead and soak with our Sunspot in the left lane. If we can draw into our Shang-Chi, then we get a lot of value here. We also can potentially do our Doom to guarantee that we get power into the danger room. The danger room does not destroy our Widow's Bite, unfortunately. We do also get our Shang-Chi, which is amazing. We're going to do the Doctor Doom because we did get the ramp component for it with the wave. We're going to do Doctor Doom, spread power here and here. On the last turn, we can either hit that with an Odin or with a Shang-Chi, depending on what they decided to drop this turn. I'm really confused with this deck, good sir. Like, it definitely does not look like a bot, but these cards definitely do look bot-like for sure. The Giganto is fine. If we do Shang-Chi, we take out their Hulks, we soak at least 2 with Sunspot. That ties us here, and unless they play over here, then we win. We should win the tiebreaker without them having their Hulks anyways. So they play a card over to the right. Let's see what they end up playing. I'm really curious what this deck entails. Okay, so the Magneto. Ooh, wait. We lost. No, okay. Whew. Danger Room had our back. We almost lost whatever this was. That would have been embarrassing. We're gonna go ahead and take our 4 cubes. And we're climbing pretty decently with this deck. We're gonna take the 4 cubes and we'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Rafi. The first location is the Onslaught Citadel. We're gonna avoid that location. If they're running something that has ongoing abilities, we definitely don't stand a chance against them. We do have our Thor and our Lockjaw, so we get some pretty good resources here. It's just if we can fill in the rest of the... Ooh, Olympia gives us... Okay. Olympia gives us some pretty good tools. We're going to rotate our Wasp here into something a little bit better. We might rotate into like Arrow or Jane Foster, which would end up pulling it back out. Next turn, we'll do Thor. That'll shuffle the Mjolnir into our deck, and then we can go from there. Cosmo in the left lane is kind of unfortunate. That makes it tough to do our Thor over there. We do get the early Odin, which is decent. It's decent power. It's under that Shang-Chi range, but we would like to be able to utilize it with the Mjolnir play. So maybe we just Thor here. We can Thor here. We can play Vision. That allows us to move around the board. We might even be able to maybe Magneto into mid, depending on what it looks like they're running. So if they're running a Shuri here, which they're playing 2 cards, so not Shuri, but had they played Shuri, we could try to angle the Cosmo where it gets hit by, where it pulls into the Taskmaster lane, which is one of my favorite things to do against Shuri players. So they do a Sunspot and then a 0. So I expect the zeroed out Red Skull to come down here. I do and I don't want to cycle our Wasp here. The reason I don't want to draw Shang-Chi. But if we drew Arrow, then we could pull it over out of the Cosmo lane, which feels pretty decent. Let's do Wasp, and then we're going to do Jane Foster to pull them back out. It's not great, but it's okay. If Wasp rotates into Mjolnir, not great. Sunspot, not great. Shang-Chi, not great. Arrow is beautiful. That is exactly what we wanted to see. With the Arrow pull, that forces them into capping out the far right lane. So the She-Hulk comes down. The zeroed out She-Hulk is interesting. Not what I was expecting. So now, all we have left is Shang-Chi, which that is perfect. Shang-Chi will take this one out. That will bring it down to 13. We automatically win this lane. As long as we cap out mid, we don't have to worry about an Arrow either. And so let's do... They have initiative here. Let's do our... I think our Magneto. Magneto to pull the Cosmo, maybe? We got our Mjolnir. And then for good measure, to make sure we're protected from the Arrow, we're going to do our Wasp here. If they do a really big play in Jotunheim, maybe they can still make it happen. But we're going to be protected against Arrow, and that's why we're going to stack into these 2 locations. They do play 1 card, being the Arrow. We are protected from the Arrow play. We do pull their Cosmo over, which is fine. That's not going to be enough to beat us. The Mjolnir comes down. We're going to cycle into our Shang-Chi, and all is right with the world. We do get the... I think it's a Shuri deck that didn't draw their Shuri, but we do get the very satisfying win against their deck. We will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Danny Sario. The first location is the big house. We have our Sunspot, we have Lockjaw and Wasp. There's been a little bit of a gap between the last game we showcased in this one, with a couple of bad draws, a couple of bad flips. Just overall, not a fun experience on the last couple. The first few, we won 5 out of the first 6, including the one for the deck explanation. then we went on a bit of a dry streak. We lost 5 in a row, which is awful. And so we should be able to get it back here, I think. We're looking really, really good. We have the Thor, we have Jane Foster, we have Lockjaw. I think we're going to play the Lockjaw first. Playing the Lockjaw first gives us a chance to pull into Mjolnir at least once to get a free rotation with Lockjaw, and then we Jane Foster to pull it back out, which should be really, really good for us. They have the Quinjet, but they don't play any of their additional stones, so I'm guessing maybe they have a really heavy hand. Let's do Lockjaw Wasp. It could potentially lock our Mjolnir into mid. If so, if we end up flipping into Odin, that's actually really good value for us, so we'll see. We'll see if that's the way it turns out. Magneto doesn't pull anybody, but also is completely fine. The She-Hulk to the left. Do we... I like our Jane Foster, but I also think we need to Shang-Chi here. We're gonna Shang-Chi. That's the safe play line. That's gonna be the safest play for us. Even if they arrow in mid, that's fine. So the Lockjaw, they do get their Lockjaw rotation. They're now locked out of the vault, but they played the Space Stone, so they can... Okay, they don't have any great cards to move over there. So I think we're perfectly fine in this left lane. We're pretty content there. We could Magneto, so if they move their Lockjaw, we could force it back. Or do we just arrow? We don't need to rotate here, right? As long as they don't play more than 3 cards, we're fine. Unless they move their Lockjaw over here, and that's where they're going to... I don't know. We're going to use arrow. We're going to see what they end up doing. I think this should be our best bet. Flipping becomes a bit of a gamble. So we have the Mjolnir or Wasp that we could flip into, and those were both really not ideal rotations. We do get the Thanos retreat. Now, to be fair, they got very unlucky with their draws. I'm guessing they didn't have Lockjaw or their stones early, and so they weren't able to really push a lot of power onto the board. We were able to counter their She-Hulk, but there are a lot of play lines that they just weren't able to draw into this time. And so the 1 cube retreat, well, maybe we won the battle. The war with Thanos is definitely not a favorable one. We're going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.